like we have so many news coming out, like everything is terrible, countries getting invaded, death, rape, destruction, whatever it is. And this is actually a positive story. Everyone remembers it was 2023 April. The geniuses at Bud Light, they thought it would be a great idea to bring in Dylan Mulvaney as their superstar, and people were pissed off about it. Leading the charge, you had Kid Rock and all this conservative stars shooting cans and whatever. And this had some long-lasting effects. They slipped from number one beer to number three. I actually worked in the advertising industry and specifically in the beer industry, and it's one of the most cutthroat industries. Like it's one of the segments, like the market segments that it's the most cutthroat because all the beers are pretty much the same. So you really need to spend a lot of money to get your beer, being number one. So we're gonna go on 2 years of this happening, and people like overlook how important like this moment in history was. Like I think the first time Trump got elected in the last 20 years, conservative things that are positive. First, Trump being elected, and this will be a close second. If not, I will place it first, because this led the charge for a bunch of companies just dropping out. We had the earning calls of Harley-Davidson last week, and they dropped their foresights for profit next year by 26%, which is a big hit. They were all into the DEI thing. If we go to the next slide, this was their type of advertising.
Whoa. Can we see this? This is a real image? This is a real image.
A real Harley-Davidson ad.
And it's
How many trans you see ride motorcycles?
Well, it's still up on their Facebook
It's not
page.
just that. What the hell is the logic here that they're celebrating that there's a lot of exhaust coming out of a motorcycle to begin with? This is why it's not just they're dumb. It's dumb and haughty.
Well, it's accurate because it's poison.
No, they're equating the pride flag to exhaust from a motorcycle and celebrating how much pollution they make.
That's
good analogy.
Yeah. The crazy thing of Harley-Davidson, of all companies, and John Deere had to walk back their DEI stuff as well. But Harley isn't just a motorcycle company. They have always targeted their products to a very specific kind of motorcycle guy.
Well,
Like, not everybody who rides a motorcycle rides a Harley. If you ride a Harley, it is like a... And like same thing,
know.
you wear a Harley-Davidson t-shirt, you wear a John Deere t-shirt, you are saying something about who you are as a person.
The thing is, especially Harleys and Indian motorcycles, after World War I and World War II, a lot of the veterans that came back from the two great wars, they were used to riding motorcycles around. They were like a very important piece of equipment in the war efforts. So when they came back, most of them disenfranchised. They just came back from killing 1,000 Japanese or killing 100 Germans. They come back, and they started motorcycle gangs. And even if Harley Davidson wants to not get involved in that side of the business.
Well, that is their business.
Well, it is.
Hell's Angels.
Yeah, Hell's Angels. I think they ride Indians or Harleys, and those are the two bikes that you have. So you have
Not on a Suzuki.
not on a Suzuki. You have very burly, bearded, violent men riding your bikes, and that's their whole branding. Like even in the Pride thing that we just showed, you can see a guy wearing a leather jacket, riding his bike and going home.
They
to
like
his
leather
boyfriend.
for a different kind of
but
thing.
now I'm not trying to be funny here, and it's going to come off as though I'm trying to be funny. I can understand the rationale. You're going to say like, okay, if we want to appeal to the trans community, quote trans, women who want to, be men, well, then you got to get a Harley. I mean, I can see embracing it in terms of the masculinity angle, not in terms of the flip side angle, like have a rainbow flag coming out of the exhaust.
But
Women have a tough time with cars. You want to put them on motorcycles?
Viva, this is actually,
Not a motorcycle,
this is
baby,
actually
it's a chopper.
a really good point. If I didn't have a say or opinions that I usually change, but if I didn't have a say or opinions, I would have stuck to the advertising industry because I was on my way to make it to corporate. I would probably be working in New York right now. But this type of things, and I'm not even angry at the politics side of things. I'm angry at the business side of things. Like this is not in Harley's best interest. Like what is the trans population? Is it
It's
like
let's say less than one trans population.
Well, I mean,
is less than 1%.
25% of them self-ID as trans, and that's the issue now because it used to be a diagnosed medical condition. They were able to keep these records, but since it was taken out of the DSM, you can self-ID. So who knows knows what the frick the number is?
Anyhow,
Honestly.
those kids are broke. The generation that's buying Harleys right now is less than 1%. Like, are you gonna jeopardize your brand and selling motorbikes? You know,
But that is the equation that they're doing. They're saying, like, on the one hand, they have a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders to act in a way that's in the shareholders' best interest, and I guess they do. They're like, all right, maybe we'll sacrifice a little on sales in years 1 through 5, but the virtue points will get us dividends in years 5 to 10. It's like YouTube does the same thing where they demonetize content. It can't be in the best interest financially in the short term. They must have rationalized it in a long.
That's the difference between the shareholder capitalism and stakeholder capitalism. You have, groups like BlackRock that manage all the assets for these companies and say, like, okay, now that we have this controlling stake in your company, you will advance these causes because otherwise we won't manage your
Well, they have board
retirement
seats,
funds.
and they control the retirement account flows. And we just found out from Mike Benz the other day something that I had never heard anybody else speak about. So the guy that works for BlackRock that decides the deployment of capital, he held positions under Obama, working for the NSA. And, what was it? It's like several government agencies. So the guy who controls the flow of BlackRock capital worked for the Obama administration.
And you look at the companies they target with these kind of things. Like
Well,
we said,
everybody-
Harley-Davidson,
John
John Deere.
I'm gonna name them all right
Bud
now.
Light. Cracker Barrel. Remember when they made Cracker Barrel roll out vegan sausages?
Yeah.
And there was this whole backlash
What was
because
the Aunt Jemima
Yeah.
also had changed. Which one changed their logo?
Aunt Jemima,
that was
they-
a little bit
they-
earlier during the BLM
Yeah, they
hysteria.
took the black lady out that everyone loved. They took her out and they changed it.
Or the Land O'Lakes butter where they took the Indian girl off but kept the land and sold you seed oil products.
I know.
And the Washington Redskins.
You mean
they
the
got rid of
Washington
that.
Commanders,
yeah.
you
And-
bigots?
Anyhow, before this, this downturn in sales and stock projections, they put out this letter out. They made it official. A bunch of brands did this. John Deere did this. This is a Harley-Davidson letter that they're pretty much disavowing all pride activities and all DEI activities. But it was too little, too late. And interesting that it is a trend. Like, the news came out, I think it was this week, that Jeff Bezos, who's usually not an ally of conservative causes, he just lost 200. It was 200,000 subscribers to the Washington Post. Because first they decided to not endorse Kamala Harris, and second, to add insult to injury, he made a comment on wanting to hire more conservative writers in the Washington Post. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Jeff Bezos is suddenly based, but I think things slowly are trending in that direction, and like, we can also go to John Deere. You just mentioned it. They're also backing out, and Tractor Supply, that is a parent company that they usually supply tractor parts to farmers. They're also backing down. They also have a big problem in their hands. They just built a factory in Mexico because they thought they could, with the tariffs, they could skip taxes and lower wages and have their factory in Mexico, and then build American things in Mexico and re-import them here because there's a bunch of tax breaks. But Trump is going to put a stop of that.
Well, you saw the fact check on that they said no, they didn't make the decision to keep it domestic. That wasn't because of Trump's threat of tariffs. It was a business decision, and they came to it naturally and organically. And fake news, Trump lied again. There was an actual fact check that tried to claim Trump lied when he ostensibly took credit for the timing of the threat of a tariff and John Deere announcing they weren't
just
moving.
makes-
Nobody else was talking about the like the Hefewson plant in Mexico that China was building to try to get around the China tariffs. Nobody was talking about that before Trump talked about it, and they stopped building that factory too. So I don't believe that fact check.
I don't believe it either. It just makes natural sense. Like, these people forget that most people can do a little bit, not all of them, but they can do a little bit of critical thinking, and you're like, okay, they're gonna put tariffs on them. They're building a super factory there. Like, maybe they're gonna stop that and start building here. Another one that I didn't know, they had pride things. It was Toyota. That is the
Well, that's more like it. Like, no trannies on tractors, no trannies on motorcycles, but like that I could see.
Yeah, like,
mean-
are
I
you
mean-
telling me the makers of the Prius said enough with the gay stuff already?
I mean, you make fun of the Prius, but they're also the number one truck.
Office car
No,
or
they're the
whatever.
number one truck for all Al Qaeda and Hamas and everyone.
Whoa, no, not the Prius. Not the Prius.
No,
The
no,
Prius
no.
is that. The Prius is the car that Will Ferrell was driving, and he floored it and said America, and Mark Wahlberg made fun of his vagina for driving the car.
This guy's
Inshallah, we will be eco-friendly.
No, but listen, these guys actually they had to put a stop of selling cars in Africa because they were so prevalent amongst militia groups and terrorist groups because their trucks are rough. You know, they're tough. You can put a 50 cal a machine gun on top of the truck and the truck will keep on running. So they had to put a stop to the sales of some kind of trucks in Africa. You can fact check me on that. And
Did
then
you get Lowe's in there?
Lowe's is one on the list, and now since we're in the middle of football season and baseball season, a bunch of the teams, and this went under the radar last year. A bunch of the NFL teams stepped away from Pride last year.
Good.
One of them, let me see how many, like the Arizona Cardinals, Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears, a bunch of them decided to not take part of the.
Who would have thunk? Like, not mixing toxic politics in sports would have been, a bad mix.
Remember when they all wrote, stop racism in the end zone and everything, and then they got rid of that. So I guess we stopped racism.
We
Like,
did
good job, guys.
Wow,
Good job.
congrats.
They did it in one season. Like,
Yeah.
And these things keep on. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I know you're Canadian, but the hockey's the worst when it comes to
You
politics.
should go to a bank in Canada, like TD, RBC. It's a competition as to who can put more rainbow apparel on their outside displays. But it's a manifestation. It's institutionalized mental illness.
I
is
know
what it
the
is.
NHL, even though it's a very manly game, it's a lot of fun to watch hockey. They haven't backed down from the whole DEI thing, but they will come around to it. And just closing, I thought this article was funny. Can we go to the next one? The next one, and yeah, this one right here. Warren Duran, made some off-color comments, and his jersey went to number one.
Nice.
They were homophobic, judged by the left comments, and that night his jersey went to number one in sales, selling 15,000 jerseys.
What did he say?
Um,
What did he say?
He was being heckled by.
Where is it? Does anybody know where Jaron Duran is from?
No.
I forget which team he's on, but I remember covering this
he on the Red
a
Sox?
couple months ago when it happened.
Is it something on the jersey or
No,
something?
no.
He said, which is why
jersey-
they're buying his
He was
jersey.
being heckled by people in the crowd, and he said "F you, F slur for gay people."
Oh.
And then he got suspended for a couple games, but his jersey sales overnight skyrocketed because
America.
suddenly everybody
The
wanted
English
to buy-
cigarette word?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can't
Everybody's
say that.
got to go back and watch that clip from South Park where the kids are explaining to the board, the use of the
I
F
love
word.
it.
And it was used in a way, for right or for wrong, back in the 90s. It had nothing to do with sexual orientation, much like the word retarded had nothing to do with mental deficiencies, but rather being an idiot of a human. And you wouldn't call someone who had mental challenges the R word, but you sure as hell would call my brother retarded when he would act like an idiot. So
Yes.
And the F word was like for if you're being like a pansy or a fairy with something.
Or also
like,
just
being
being
really
just
off.
obnoxious
being an
and
idiot. Like,
pretentious.
but the origins. The bottom line, I'm convinced that the weaponization of language has occurred over time only for the political, not disenfranchising, but demonizing of groups. And so you get, somebody will use a word and they'll get a pass, like Lopez making a Mexican stealing joke, but they can weaponize it against their ideological adversary.
I think that's
Yeah.
very interesting. If I can dive a little bit into this, you have the term politically correct. Okay, so there's things that you say that are correct for political. Who chooses the politics of correctness?
Well, it's of communist origin, the very term itself, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, it is for very communist, and that generates something very funny. It's pre-censorship. Like, instead of being censored, you censor yourself from saying things. Like,
We
I
just
think
did it. We just did it for the last
Well,
couple minutes.
we
Well,
just
that's
did
more
it.
strategic. On the internet,
Yeah,
someone cuts
of
a
course.
soundbite and then runs it over and over
Of course,
again.
but
like-
think why we're doing that. Because we have to upload this show to YouTube. YouTube has strict guidelines for what you can and can't say. And then the audience at large also has strong perceptions about what words you can and can't say that make it acceptable.
Yeah.
And we don't want to ding our viewership either through YouTube or through the audience.
But I think up to this point, and don't do it, people, don't do it. Every single person here said something that taken out of context. It
Don't clip
will,
it.
Yeah, they will
It's like
clip
when
it
Rob
really
says he
hard.
loves men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many times.
Honestly, given what we say on this panel, most of what's in context
Well,
doesn't sound great.
Reporting on Kanye talking about Hitler. I mean, it was impossible to quote Kanye without having your quote of Kanye cut and looped.
Vinny actually got a channel strike for making fun of Kanye wearing the mask, and he did a quick sketch about it, and that almost got the channel banned.
Well, no, the issue is we don't say these things. On the one hand, we're already like politically not disfavored, but on the other side, you don't say it so that they don't put together a montage so that if and when you become politically disfavored, like Joe Rogan, they put together a 5-minute montage of you using the N-word and try to get you canceled over it.
Yeah.
So it's an investment in your future, everybody.
It is. Just say it out loud. Get it out of the way.
DEI dead.
Yeah, it is. It's not
R.I.P.
dead, but it's dying. It's dying, and we have proof. We have proof on stocks. We have proofs on revenues. We have proofs on the moves. that
University of
companies are
Florida just rolled back their DEI program. Microsoft, which is a surprising one, actually just rolled back their DEI program. Super surprising, Bill Gates.
The
man.
Vanguard stopped doing the DEI ESG stuff a while ago. I think State Street stopped also.
Even as we take this victory lap, though, I need to.
Oh, thank you
Dri-
for blackpilling.
I need to. No, I need to drive this home. Is that don't stop.
Yeah.
Don't let up.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the top the Bud Light boycott. Kid Rock and all those other people. They all cucked out and forgave Bud Light after a couple months after the brand had suffered. The brand never apologized. They never said, "We apologize for putting Dylan Mulvaney on a can. Men cannot be women. There are only two genders." What they did was they made a couple America-looking ads and tried to roll back and make you forget. And then every conservative that was trying to take a stand, like Kid Rock, would not have Bud Light in his bar.
Yeah.
They
But then,
struck a deal
suddenly
with Kid Rock.
they all was forgiven. You know what? You put the American flag in a couple ads and all is forgiven. No, we are holding out for an apology. And the reason why it was so easy to boycott Bud Light was because it's not that good of a beer. And it's not that hard to find another beer that tastes just like it.
Here's the problem. I went deep sea fishing and I wanted to get a case of beer for the crew. And so I go and I'm in there. I was like, oh, Bud Light or Stella Artois. I was like, all right, I'll get Stella. And then I post something like, oh yeah, I had a choice and I picked Stella. And then people on the internet like, Viva, you idiot. They're owned by the same overarching company. So congrats.
Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, so you're dealing with like monopolies of sorts, or at least they're monopolies cannibalizing a market. It's even difficult to boycott these companies.
Well, it is true. Like I actually worked for the parent company for a little bit, in the advertising side, and they own everything.
Anheuser-Busch
Like
own
it's
everything,
very difficult to buy a beer that is not owned by them.
And I say, Connor, the issue was less or not only Dylan Mulvaney. It was that idiot marketing officer, the CMO, who insulted
Alyssa
frat boys.
Heinerscheid was
You
her
want
name.
you want to team up with eclectic partners, fine. And the Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney, it wasn't even like a made for market brand. It was just for him. But the insulting the frat boys showed an ideological disrespect to the base, and they got what they deserved. But
Well, we can go deeper into this. For example, the Joker movie that came out recently, okay, big flop. It had one of the biggest drop on the second weekend. It dropped like 87% at the box office. The first movie that came out, it was a very important movie for males, for men. It was a very important movie.
The
'cause
Joaquin Phoenix one?
The Joaquin Phoenix one, the first one, because it showed a side of masculinity, of being lonely, being alone, nobody giving a shit about you. So like it hit a chord with most men that ever felt alone. And they knew that was very popular with men. But right now, they decided to turn it around and turn it into a musical with Lady Gaga. So like the disdain of these people for us or for the base consumers. And I'm so glad this is turning around.
I didn't even know the movie came out.
Yeah.
It did come out.
Even Joaquin Phoenix hated it.